your Secretary of War. I'm not Leon. This video is going to be aimed at introducing the idea or the separation between promotion in an MOS and outside of an MOS. So how does that work? What does that entail? So we're going to break it down. So first and foremost, what do I mean with a promotion inside and outside of an MOS? Well, when you pass your basic combat training, you are given the option to either one, apply to one of the MOSs we offer over here, or two, stay out of an MOS and just rise to the ranks over here, these ranks. So we have two rank systems. One, you have the General National Guard ranks. These are the ones that appear in front of your name and are the most dominant rank system, or is the most dominant rank system we have in National Guard. This is what people will address you by no matter what you are inside of your MOS. However, if you also join an MOS, you will, for example, if we go down to 31B or military police or whatever the first one is, it is military police, you'll have another set of another chain of command. So at this point, if you are, for example, in an MOS, if you choose, you're out of basic combat training and you apply to the military police and you are inside of this MOS, you will receive promotions for both the main chain of command that we have, which I've just shown over here, and this chain of command. Which means if you get your hour requirements or the prerequisite requirements for chain of command for chain of command for the main National Guard rankings, you'll be promoted in here. But if you do not receive the correct if you do not receive or meet the correct requirements, you will not be promoted in here. Meaning you can be a senior NCO inside of National Guard, but you can still be a junior officer, which limits your accessibility anyway inside of your MOS. So if you are a senior non-commissioned officer inside of the National Guard, but are still at junior officer, for example, in 31 in the military police MOS, then you've got a little bit of an issue. Obviously, it's not going to restrict you moving anywhere else, but you're not going to have much of a career. And then the next step, for example, here, I'm going to break it down with a little chart in a second here as well, is if you are at the point here, let's put you right here. So you are a sergeant major, which means you're also accessible for officer candidate school, meaning you go through a officer school system, and then you get promoted up to these ranks. So you become an officer, you become a sir or a ma'am, depending on your gender. If you are at this rank, so you've made it all the way here, you've met all the requirements to promote up to private first class, corporal, sergeant, staff sergeant, sergeant first class, first sergeant, and then sergeant major. So you've made it a hell of a long way. But if you're still in the junior officer position inside of, excuse me, hold on, inside of your MOS, so for example, 31B, and you're at sergeant major, you're not going to be able to go through officer candidate school. You need a good recommendation. You need a reason to go through it. People need to recommend you. You can apply, but you won't be accepted. So this will fly out the window if I can freaking find it now. Here, this all will fly out of the window if you are unable to get up through these ranks. Now, I'm not saying that's a big challenge. It probably won't be a big challenge going through here. Obviously, all of these MOSs are decentralized, meaning inside of MOS there are a completely different function, a different system, and you just got to get used to it. So it's different. I cannot tell you exactly how it's going to work here. I cannot tell you the difference between the 153A. Now, obviously over here you will also see that the higher you go. So this is the command structure, the initial command structure of your MOS. You have different ranks. So for example, platoon sergeant is an E7, sergeant first class. So ideally this rank system right here is made for the fact that you promote yourself through these ranks whilst you also promote yourself through National Guard ranks. If you don't and you're stuck here, or for example senior officer at E9 and you go into platoon sergeant, your rank might change. That really ultimately really depends. However, this is also compatible to a rank that you have, meaning if you are an E9 and you're doing a really good job, you get promoted to platoon sergeant, you can stay at E9 and you're still going to be referred to just as your new rank. So in this case, sergeant major. That's just how it's going to work. Now, if you choose plan B, or that's plan A, I'm going to show this all on a map or a diagram in a second, a really, really well-made diagram. If you choose plan B, which is, say, a I've just passed my basic combat training. I am not going to join an MOS. I'm going to go the more passive route inside a National Guard, and I am just going to stay and rank up through these ranks, just like everyone else, but without an MOS additional, which means you have more time to just focus on National Guard or anything else. It's less time consumption. However, it also could be a smarter system, in your opinion. Of course, it really depends how you want to play it. Um, Obviously, if you're not going to join an MOS, your main duties are going to be to sit at Fort Zancudo, protect the gate, do your patrols, maybe practice, stuff like that. Deployments every now and then, but not as often as in an MOS. You won't be a part of convoys as much, obviously, and you won't be privy to cooler tasks. Obviously, MOSs will have a specific duty. You won't have that. You'll be a basic infantryman, sits on the fucking Fort Zancudo. That's all you would do. However, obviously, that has that has some benefits that come along with it. So, for example, you'll have more time, meaning you can get just the hours and the requirements for this. Meaning you can go all the way up to here without an MOS. You can go all the way to sergeant major and then say, "Hey, okay, I've made it all the way here. I have, for example, maybe I did really well on one deployment as just an infantryman. I got a positive conduct record. Then I'm going to use that as my basis to apply to officer candidate school right here. Excuse me, right here. I'll apply to my officer candidate school. Okay, so you apply to officer candidate school. You put on there. You say you have a stellar conduct record. You're positive. You've been doing really good. Good. Excuse me. You've been exemplary in your work. Everything like that. Then hey, you can go through officer candidate school. That means now you've done that. You've passed officer candidate school. You are up here. You are in these ranks now. So you are become an officer, a commissioned officer, or a warrant officer first. And warrant officers and commissioned officers have a higher pay grade. They have a higher level. They have more power, more leadership. Meaning, if you then choose, and only then choose, to go into an MOS, whatever it might be, you can even be selected then for the 19th. Whatever MOS you go into, say for example, we're going to keep going with 31B, you then join 31B, then your your route changes incredibly because coming to an MOS as an officer is something MOS heads will take very, very generously. I mean, they don't often, you won't often, this probably won't happen much, but if you do decide to apply as an officer, your pay grade is much higher. Meaning they say, okay, hey, we know you. We're gonna keep our eyes on you. You can join in immediately as an officer too, whatever it might be. They might say that you have to go in as a junior officer or you go in as a senior officer. Depends. It really depends on your rank. But doing that allows you to one immediately receive attention from your MOS command team and gives you a much easier route and a much easier eligibility for these ranks, for battalion, for company commander, for company first sergeant. These are the top ranks in an MOS. These are one step away. These ranks right here, one step away of going up to general or going up to some sort of leadership position inside of the entire National Guard. And you've done that by simply cutting corners. Very simply cutting corners. Obviously, by cutting corners, you also miss out on some cool events. You miss out on some cool duties. You miss out on certain privileges that MOSs bring with them. For example, military police can punish people, can follow the UCMJ, whereas you might just sit at a gate all day or walk around, protect the base, or run through training courses. I mean, it's not entirely boring. It's just a different route. It's a more passive route. If you have a focus on LEO, this is a route you might consider. Now, we're going to visually show this a little bit more here. So, if you do, this is, oh, cannot draw clearly. If you go, that's why. If you go through, wow, hold on. What am I doing? If you go through, I swear to God, hold on. Okay, if you go through, what is going on? Hold on one second. Bear with me. Bear with me here. We have a brush. Is this not, am I doing something wrong? Can I marker maybe black? Okay. All right, whatever. Yeah, obviously that's gonna be a fucking. So if you go, there we go, through the first plan. This is the second plan. Then this is the first resemblance of where you go and you pass your basic combat training. So B, C, T is down here. You passed it, and then you have your National Guard chain of command and your MOS chain of command. So you infill into whatever MOS you might have, whether this is, let's say, 31B now. Oh my God. 31B, and this is just your basic E1 all the way up to whatever it might be in this case. I mean, it goes up to 06 in this case, but yeah. And you'll have these different ones, and you'll have junior officer, and then you'll have senior officer at the top, right? So you go up, and this is the route you'll go. You'll basically do it at the same time, and this is where your line at OCS is. So right before you go up to, actually, senior officer isn't here. I just realized that. So senior officer actually isn't here. It is right here. Great. Freaking changes the brush again. Yeah, so senior officer is right here. But yeah, but once you've reached the rank of senior officer right here, then you can be, and this has to be E9. You might either be not recommended, or even beforehand when you're already at E7, for example, and you're doing really well, you might be recommended to immediately go up here at E7 to a platoon sergeant. All right, that's one route. That's one thing you could be doing. The second thing that you could be having in this route is that you've made it up to E9 and they say, hey, we want you up here, not down here. We want you up here. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to send you to OCS, Officer Candidate School. So they're going to say, hey, okay, you're at E9. We're going to recommend you. So one of the MOS advisors, one of the leadership members of that MOS is going to advise you for OCS. You'll go to Officer Candidate School. And that's basically the entire system. And then you keep ranking up, you keep going up here, and then you end up at the same place. Now, here you follow a different system. So now we're on this one. Here you've just finished your basic combat training, and you'll go up through these ranks. So this is E1. Excuse me for my handwriting. This is E9. Okay, so you will follow this system, and you'll go up these ranks without an MOS. So there's no MOS on the side. You won't. There's nothing else you have to do. There's no additional tasks. You are very passive system. Then you will have to, along this route, obviously, you'll have to receive some sort of medal, some sort of accommodation. That can be during good role play. It could be a appraisal from someone else. It could be a number of things. It's endless. So you need some sort of praise. Holy smoke. Oh my God. Okay, you can read that. You need some sort of praise. And with that praise, you can go to officer candidate school. And then at OCS, you become a warrant officer or a officer or commissioned officer. In this case, it is. So scratch out commissioned officer. Okay, so now you have a higher pay grade. You're already, I mean, you're already, if we translate it over into this system, you're somewhere in this area, right? So now at this very point, you can choose to say, hey, we're going to go to an MOS. So we're going to make this 31B. And instead of going in at a junior officer, MOS advisors from this the high ranking from the MOS might say, okay, we're going to stick you up here, or we're going to stick you up here immediately, because you already have leadership background, you already have the background of being promoted all these ranks, you already have the background of receiving praise. What else do you need? I mean, the duties are effectively the same here. The duties don't change here; they change here. They change really here. So this is where you'll go in, and then you receive a different pay grade, and you're much closer to the top. Now, the only difference is that you don't have experience. You won't have experience in this MOS, and some MOS advisors might say, "Hey, that's a no-go. We're not going to let you go in here." Okay, so you need to play this route smart. You need to go the right way. It's entirely up to you how you do it. You need to follow what path you want to do, but that is how our military occupations and our promotion systems work between MOS and National Guard. Thank you very much.